not a dream.
Very good evening. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday Night Files. It's a bit loud. Okay. Right. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Do appreciate it. And what a day. Hope you had a good week. It's been tragic for me. Honestly, work-wise, been so busy. Unbelievable. But, still weekend, which is good. And looking forward to this guest, to be honest. So I'll just bring up a few little notes made on the this guest. Okay. Right. Today we're diving deep into the fringes of the unknown world with a guest who has spent nearly 4 decades standing on the front lines of the unexplained. Since 1986, Preston Dennett has been more than just a researcher. He's been a seeker of truth. What started as a discovery of strange encounters within his own circle of family and friends turned into a lifelong mission that has produced over 30 books, 100 articles on the paranormal. He is a veteran field investigator for MUFON, a seasoned ghost hunter, and a voice you've likely heard of on Coast to Coast AM or seen on History Channel's Ancient Aliens and UFO hunters. From the depths of the ocean floor to the far reaches of the galaxy and even the spirits in our own backyards, Preston has documented it all. Joining us today from an undisclosed forested location somewhere on planet Earth. Preston Denton. But first, I shall bring up our co-host. Hello. Are you crying again? Is it my voice?
What, crying or laughing and crying?
I think I deserve an Oscar or something for that.
Sorry.
Why are you laughing?
I was just laughing at because
Why? Remember who's got the bell?
Oh yeah, this is true.
How you been anyway?
Behave. You what? Sorry.
How have you been?
I'm not too bad. I don't know why, but my hay fever or whatever it is suddenly decided to flare up, so I actually can't see you very well at the moment. My eyes are, so that's the crying. My eyes are running. It's like I'm underwater. So I'm a bit confused. I'm assuming I'm pointing in the right direction at the camera at the moment. So
right. Yeah, my lighting's out as well a little bit. Yeah, for some reason. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right then. Well, I think we should, because we've sort of read up a bit on Preston, so I think we should bring our guest up. So I shall bring Preston up. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us. Really do appreciate it.
Hey, it's a pleasure and an honor. Thanks for having me on.
Cool. Thank you. First of all, what I want to do, I just want to say I have a quick little look because we've got a couple of your friends, I think, in the comments. I'm going to stick the comments up on screen as well. There we go. I'm going to move Natalie straight over here and swap over so that the comments aren't in her way. We have Roxy B. Hello, Roxy. Thank you for the admin. Heidi Hansen.
Hey, Heidi.
Sasquatch Sister. Hello. Hey, I hope you're doing well, Dawn. Delroy Kelly. Hello, Delroy. We also have just have a look. Oh, Keith. Hello, Keith Aston. Hello, mate. I hope you're keeping well. Thank you for joining us. Blimey, quite a few comments already. Well, okay. Well, yeah, and Kate. Hello, Kate. Thank you very much for moderating. Both Dawn and Kate do appreciate that. Right. So, how do you spend your time at the moment, Preston? Is it like with podcasts mostly, like doing this?
Oh, yeah. I spend a lot of time researching, but I love reading, as you can tell by the books behind me. And I love watching occasional home improvement shows and things like that. The British Baking Show, I love that show. That's one of my favorite. The Great British Baking Show.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. I love it. Yeah, you know, I spend time outside as well, trying to keep the house fixed up.
Yeah.
Mostly normal stuff. Mostly.
Do you still are you still quite active with MUFON, or you're not so active with them?
In terms of investigating for them, no. I'm still a member of MUFON. I support them. I've been a member since the beginning. You know, back in 1989 or 8 is when I joined. So I pay my dues, and I still, speak occasionally for the various state chapters. And occasionally, I think twice now, I've spoken for MUFON Central. But no, I don't actively investigate for them. I'm independent mostly. But still have my little field investigators card.
Right. Is it with MUFON? I've heard that you collate, you investigate, you collate information, but do you action that information at all? Do you work on it? Do you analyze it, or do you send it off somewhere else? Once you've collated all the information and gathered all the information, do you work with it, or do you then file it or archive it?
It depends. Absolutely. I would say that I work with it. Yeah, I'm always interested in following trends, and if I find a good case, it's always nice to see if you can find independent corroboration in some way, because most people don't report their encounters. A few do, and it's always nice when you find someone who's seen a UFO in the same area at the same time of a person whose case you're investigating. So MUFON, it's still the world's largest UFO study group in terms of citizens study group. It's not without controversy, but I support them. Yeah.
No, rightly so. Why not as well? I mean, they do a good job. They're very thorough. They're very, very thorough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. Do you find that the people that you talk to that come forward who've got cases? Do you find that they are in the bracket? Would you say that they're in the side of things which do genuinely believe in things like UFOs, or are they believers, would you say, or do you often find like a bit of a mix with people that step forward and give you information?
Oh, you get the entire bell curve of people who are absolutely believe in it, and some who would never in a million years have considered anything like it. Some are just kind of agnostic about it, certainly have heard of it. I would say most people would lean towards the skeptical side in terms of, people who've seen a UFO generally aren't like diehard UFO enthusiasts. So I would say that really you get all kinds. It's funny because one time I did interview this lady who I worked with actually for years, found out she'd seen UFOs. Her name's Dorothy Hudson. And she's like, oh, she found out I studied UFOs, and just went a little like, wow. And said, I've got to tell you what happened to me. And she and her best friend, Carol Sereno, were like 9 years old or so, maybe it was 13, and were at the Pio Pico Library in Koreatown outside of LA when this UFO showed up. It dropped from the sky. They knew it was exactly 9 o'clock because the library closed and they were waiting for their mother to pick them up. So they're sitting on the sidewalk when this star-like object drops from the sky and hovers across the street right over the telephone wires. And it's now a classic flying saucer. Little lights on it, totally silent, metallic. And they're like, oh my God, look at this. Wow. Her mother drives up and sees it as well. And she's like, oh my God. And the kids get in the car and she takes off and it follows them home. So I interviewed all three of them about this. They live 5 minutes away, right? We're driving. They left about 9 o'clock and got home. It followed them all the way home. They ran up to the second story of their home, looked out the window, and it was still there. It darted back and forth and then shot straight up at a 45-degree angle, became a little star-like light and was gone. They looked at the clock, and it's now 10:15. Wow. So Dorothy's telling me this. I'm like, Dorothy, that's missing time. You've been abducted.
Yeah.
She's like, what? What are you talking about? I was a brand new researcher at the time. This was right when I started researching it. I normally don't tell people, that right away. But it was funny because I interviewed her and I interviewed the mother, and the first words out of her mouth was, I don't believe in UFOs. I'm like, well, that's okay. I understand. Tell me what you saw. And she says, well, I don't know what it was, but it looked like two bowls stuck together, had a little colored lights around it. It was silent. It followed us over the car, but I don't believe in UFOs. I'm like, that's okay. Just it followed you. It's like, yeah, all the way to our house, and it was right in front of our house. I don't believe in this stuff. She would say that every 3 sentences or so. And so she stuck to her guns in terms of like, I don't, not sure about this, but gave actually a really good interview. So it's really interesting to see how people react to this. I've interviewed people who are like ultra religious. They had a real hard time with it, or even complete.
Preston, just with someone that's had missing time like that lady, where do you stand with the use of hypnosis or regression? Where do you stand with that? Do you think it's a good thing, or do you think it somehow alters the memories?
I support it. But I kind of have some conditionally, I should say. I am absolutely 100% convinced it works. And I've really looked into this in depth because there are some really well, done studies which show that it can be abused and can lead to false memories. There's no doubt about that. And also there's several studies that are also very thorough that show that it does work. And I know people who've gone under hypnosis, of course, and I've certainly referred a few people. I have never hypnotized anyone. I've kind of shied away from it because of the controversy surrounding this subject. But if you look at the cases of people who've recalled their experiences under hypnosis and compare them to the ones who've had fully conscious experiences, they match each other right down to this tiniest detail. So I'm convinced it absolutely works. I generally don't recommend it for people unless they've had a very clear-cut case of missing time, and the encounter that they had is, really preying on their mind, if you, so to speak. If it's leading to major anxieties, nightmares or insomnia or PTSD. I always tell them, before you go under hypnosis, please do this. Write down everything you consciously remember. Because I know people who haven't done that, and they start to get confused. They're like, well, did I remember this, or was this under hypnosis? And actually, I always recommend do meditation first. Try recalling it through your dreams. You know the Betty Hill case, Betty and Barney Hill?
Yeah.
Very famous case. She remembered her experiences almost in their entirety through a series of dreams immediately after the encounter. Did go under hypnosis, and basically the dreams were a little more thorough than the hypnosis sessions. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Dreams are an effective method. You can join a support group. That's another
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. But I believe dreams are a very effective method of recollection.
It's opening up a can of worms, just so people know, because you might not remember the encounter you're in for.
Depending on your dreams. Yeah. Sometimes,
Sorry, Phil, before I forget. Do you find that missing time is always linked to abduction?
No, I wouldn't say always. It's tricky. People can have missing time for a number of reasons, or what we would call suppressed memories. We see this when people have an encounter with anything that's completely out of their worldview, or in some way traumatic, perhaps. So if they might, like war trauma veterans have some trouble with amnesia, or child abuse victims, or even people who just have some weird, unusual experience. We see that with even Bigfoot encounters or ghost encounters. Like, oh yeah, they shove it out of their mind. So that can lead to what we would call missing time.
So it could be like the brain's way of reducing an overwhelming experience into a time frame it can cope with. So it's like, it seems like you looked at the thing for like 30 seconds or a few minutes, but it was actually an hour, but your brain can't quite process the fact that it was an hour. So it sort of chunks some of it down and puts some of it to one side so that you remember little bits, but the rest is kind of somewhere else in your brain. And
I think that's actually, I think that's an accurate way of doing it, because I'm not sure that it's the ETs who are doing it. That's generally what a lot of people think. But I've come to realize, having interviewed a lot of people, that no, it's really us who are responsible for remembering or not remembering. But it is a huge red flag. If you see a UFO close up and suddenly an hour has passed, dollars to donuts, you were taken on board or had a more extensive encounter.
Okay. Yeah, it's just that some parts of you just aren't processing it, so it's sort of like not coming through into your memory. So
yeah, it's still there. It's funny.
Yeah. It's like the conscious, the difference, the conscious and the unconscious. It's like you're saying about with the hypnosis. It's like the brain probably, rather sort of like them being conscious about it all, has gone, I don't like this, we're going to put it over there because I don't know what to do with it. And like you say, sometimes it doesn't bother you, and then sometimes it doesn't. And that's where the hypnosis is useful, because the hypnosis accesses the subconscious bit in a more sort of like controlled, safe manner. Well, as I say, safe, it can be a bit difficult, can't it, accessing memories? But I've just always found the missing time thing quite curious. It's like, because like when you're in a flow state, you lose track of time. Like when you're doing something that you're interested in, you think you've only been doing it for like 10-15 minutes, and you find out you've been 2 hours. So I'd wondered whether it was a similar type of experience, but it does seem to be more towards the trauma side than the flow state side, though, from what I can gather.
Well, I think it depends, because there are people who've had a very short encounter, but it was so impressive to them that it felt much longer. Like, oh my gosh, and they're soaking up every detail. You know, like when you're at work and at the office and like, gosh, time is just, it's stopped. The clock is not moving. It's horrible. Or, you know, stuck at your desk at school when you were a kid. And if you're doing something you absolutely adore doing and you're really enjoying it, well, time flows very quickly. So time is a bit, I'm not sure that we fully understand time. It's largely our own perception of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think missing time is a big part of this subject. And absolutely, people do have missing time. And what's really interesting is later, you know, perhaps the next day or weeks or even years, these memories will just suddenly drop back into their minds, sometimes with a trigger or a cue. You know, Whitley Strieber's book Communion with the face on it, that woke up a lot of people. It's like, oh my God, I remember seeing that as a kid. I've heard that from, gosh, dozens of people.
Yeah, it's curious the way the mind works like that. Like you say, it's quite multi-layered in many respects, and there's a lot more going on in our brains than we think is going on in our brains. And like you say, it's almost like sometimes like the brain's like trying to process stuff, and it can take a long time. And like you say, sometimes like you need a trigger for the brain to go, oh my God, that's what that was. You know, it's sort of like, you know, now I get it, and then you start remembering stuff again. But yeah, it's quite, and the plastic nature of memory anyway is, you know, they did that research, didn't they? It said that memory is not fixed. It's a lot more malleable than we think it is, a lot of the time. So it's like you say, writing things down is very important, because when you start playing with your memories, trying to remember, that's when things get a bit fuzzy, isn't it? So it's like if you write everything down first and then start investigating it, you've got a better baseline. So that's actually a good idea. It's
I know people who've had missing time with a simple sighting. I don't think they were taken on board. They just completely forgot about it. We have a really good way of compartmentalizing. I knew one lady, she had fully conscious encounters. She didn't have missing time, but every time she had an encounter, she would not think about it. She'd put it in a drawer in her mind. Just don't want to think about this. You know, contactees are really good at that. Deny, explain away, ignore, don't think about it. They can go through their lives not even realizing they're a contactee until perhaps midlife. Usually I think that they have some idea about it because almost always contact starts when a person's a young kid. It's almost always generational. So the parents will have had encounters, or grandparents, or someone in the family. The kids, certainly. Yeah, it's difficult to process, to say the least, for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's the thing that I found quite fascinating about the whole the whole sort of thing. Is like you say, it's like trying to imagine going through your whole life doing something but not knowing you're doing something. It's like it's quite a trippy thought, really, in a way. It sort of like makes you question an awful lot about what you're doing in everyday life, even, you know, and then you add in that as well, and you just, it's quite a lot to think about. It's something that's always puzzled me a little bit with it. It's like how people, but like you say, I suppose it's just like how they deal with it, isn't it, in a way, you know.
Some people don't have great memories. It's funny because I've noticed that those who do remember, don't have missing time, almost always have like a photographic memory or an eidetic memory, or are really good at remembering stuff. One lady I interviewed, she's my favorite contactee, Dolly Safran. I wrote a whole book about her case called Symmetry. She's got a photographic memory, goes back to like when she's months old.
Oh, wow.
Which is funny because, you know, mainstream science says, oh, you can't remember anything until you're, 5 or 4. Not true. You know, people remember past lives for one thing, which has been verified. But I've talked to a number of contactees who remember stuff down to before they're a year old, and were able to verify it with other family members. Like, how do you remember that? You were in the crib. They remember. You can absolutely remember stuff way earlier than mainstream psychiatry says.
Wow. Do you think it's something to do with the I don't know how to phrase it. You know, like how sort of like they've found like the neurodivergent brain is slightly wired different to say a neurotypical brain, and there's a spectrum. Do you think like the with contactees it's a similar principle, that maybe their brain is wired a particular way to allow, you know, to allow this kind of, to access to this kind of interaction? I don't know if that makes sense.
No,
I know what I mean in my head. But
it's funny that you mentioned that, because there are some people who are studying that particular aspect right now. There does seem to be a higher incidence of people that we would describe as being on the spectrum, or neurodivergent or autistic within the, you know, contactee community. It's not a hard and fast rule by any means, because anyone can have contact. I did a whole study on, you know, who's having contact. It's equally divided between men and women. It's people of all ages, all ethnicities, all, you know, religions, political affiliation, education. It's really across the board. Is a higher incidence of Rh negative blood type, but again, that's not a hard fast rule either. But yeah, there's quite a few people who are, and I don't like labels, you know, like autism and stuff like that, because I think we're all unique in our own ways. But yeah, absolutely. I think there's something to that. We need more studying to really pin that down as being absolutely definitive. Because every time you say, oh, well, you know, this is the rule, well, then along comes an exception to that rule.
That's always the way.
A one-off. You know, not every contactee has had contact their whole entire lives. They just happen to have one experience. So there's always exceptions to every rule. But that, yeah, I have noticed that actually.
Okay, that's interesting. It was something. It was a conversation I had with I can't remember if it was Daniel. We were talking about Bigfoot.
Daniel J. Williams.
That was it. It was, yeah. We were talking about Bigfoot encounters and paranormal, and he was saying that most of the people that he knows are sort of like on some kind of spectrum, and we thought it was quite interesting, because it's like, I think he's mainly cryptid, isn't he, and paranormal, I think, rather than UFO. So it's like, so it's interesting to see, you know, and we theorize that maybe it's because they have done studies that show, haven't they, like an ADHD brain processes an awful lot of information very quickly, and whether it is just like the way the process information, they pick up more information than sort of like, you know, a bit like eyesight, isn't it? It's on a range, and you know, nearsighted people would see more things than far-sighted people at certain distances. So we just hypothesized it. So it's quite interesting that, you know, if the UFO encounters were similar, because it could suggest that the brain has a receptivity somewhere that allows, you know, for these encounters, or for us to process them in a particular way, like say with the missing time and everything. But yeah, no, it's just an information thread that we've been following. So
there's been a lot of studies on like what kind of people have encounters. There was a whole series of studies that said people who have encounters are more fantasy prone, which turned out not to be true. They finally just put a whole bunch of people together and asked psychiatrists to try to pinpoint which ones were contactees and which weren't, and they could not tell. And contactees are generally, and this again is not a hard fast rule, but really high achievers, very, very intelligent, often will have multiple degrees. There are absolute patterns. As a general rule, contactees are profoundly psychic. They have a lot of paranormal experiences. Things, you know, precognition perhaps, or mediumistic abilities, healing abilities, that turns up quite a bit. Astral projection, this sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, it's really another interesting thing I found with contactees is, by and large, they're almost always very concerned about our planet.
Oh, wow.
They've got, you know, a real strong sense of environmentalism, a very strong connection to animals. I always ask people now if they're contactees, like, do you have any unusual animal stories? And like, oh my God, yeah, they call me Snow White or Dr. Dolittle, and you know, wild animals come up to me and so forth. And all of the dogs and cats follow me around. And things like this. Just
Yeah.
really
Perhaps
cool.
that could be the main factor then. We simplify it down. It's the animals like you. Do they follow you around? Okay.
I've learned to ask all these really interesting questions, like how do you
Yeah.
feel about clowns? Because fear of clowns is a big thing among contactees for some reason.
Really? Wow.
It's actually pretty prevalent in society in general. Chlorophobia, it's called, fear of clowns. But I brought it up once at a support meeting for UFO contactees, and everyone just went crazy, like, "Oh my god, I hate clowns!"
Wow.
So,
The clowns
sometimes
and animals.
the ETs will come sort of dressed up. This could be a screen memory as well. People think it's a clown or an animal or a superhero or a teddy bear or something, when really it was an ET. They're just overlaying their own belief system on it. I think sometimes ETs will kind of give that impression to reduce the fear factor, which doesn't really always work sometimes. It just kind of leads to a fear of clowns.
I suppose the thing as well is like a clown is an exaggerated the facial expressions and everything is exaggerated to convey a particular thing, but the clown themselves is kind of like empty. So it's like you kind of know that when you're watching clowns that they're not. I know there's a person underneath it, but the clown itself is not like a person in a way. It's a caricature of one aspect, and it's like it does make you wonder, like you say, with if they are sort of like masking themselves, whether people sort of subconsciously connect that this isn't what it seems. It's
I'm not a huge fan of clowns personally. I'm not afraid of them per se.
They're just a little bit weird, aren't they? Clowns are a little bit strange.
Yeah, here's another really interesting pattern I noticed with like who's being contacted and why. Because I did a whole study on people who've been healed as a result of a UFO encounter, which is apparently a thing. Because I wrote a book about this, documented some 300 cases. Like, why are these people being healed? Well, I could use a healing. I know a lot of people out there could. And what I found was really interesting. This is not a hard and fast rule, but I was interviewing this lady from Norway. It's like, oh, I heard about your research into healing cases. This happened to me. Greys came into her bedroom, she said, flipped her around like a rag doll, scared her half to death, and put this instrument on her back, which was kind of like, a lint remover. You know what those look like with the little cylinder and the handle?
Yeah.
I've heard other people describe this. They placed it on her back, and she felt pulses of energy going through her, and they filed right out through the door, or rather the wall. And she jumped up to see, because she saw this blue light outside, and it winked off. So it was maybe a 3-minute encounter. And she's like, oh my God, my back. She had chronic back pain from a previous injury. So I'm interviewing her about this. I'm like, did you have encounters as a kid? Nothing. Anything in your family? Nope. I'm like, well, that's odd, because usually that's a pattern. And so I'm just going through all the questions I ask people. Finally, I'm like, what do you do for a living? She says, well, I'm a retired artist, actually. I'm like, artist? Well, that's kind of interesting. I've talked to a lot of people who are artists. And then she said something which really rang a bell for me. She says, please don't use my name. I'm pretty well known in my community. I'm pretty famous for doing human and animal rights activism.
Okay.
And when she said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just interviewed this guy, Reverend Michael Carter, who had an ET visitation and was healed of a blood clot in his leg. He's a healer. He's an environmentalist. He's doing really good work for humanity in terms of fighting against racism. He was awarded by the president. So I'm like, oh my gosh, thought of another case. John Hunter Gray, who worked for the rights of Native Americans. And it just started, the dominoes fell at that point. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've interviewed a lot of people who are doctors, nurses, musicians, artists, inventors, animal rights activists, social workers, people who are doing good work for humanity in some capacity. So again, not a hard, fast rule, but it keeps turning up. And in fact, there was a case in Arizona, real quick, where this couple was taken on board, and they asked the ETs, why don't you just help come down and cure the world, help everyone? Like, we can't do that. We are helping those who help others, but it's up to you to solve your own problems. So I thought that was an interesting kind of confirmation of this pattern I keep seeing.
Wow. It's an interesting spin as well, because like greys are often seen as being very negative, aren't they, in many ways? And to find that there is this side of the phenomenon that's actually sort of like beneficial as well. It's
in terms of the negative grays, I get it. It's very scary for people, especially when you wake up and what's that in your bedroom? And suddenly you find yourself on a table and it's like, these are not quite human looking. But I will say that the media is very fear-based and portrays this as a very scary thing, which, it can and often is. But I did research on this too. Most of the healings are done by grays.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's mostly grays. It's all types: human-looking, tall whites, little blue beings. I mean, you name it, mantids even. But I started, when I first got involved in this field, I'm like, gosh, this is a little scary. Is this good news for humanity? I'm not so sure. Because a lot of this, books are very fear-based as well. I started to realize there's misinformation and disinformation, and our governments are pushing a fear narrative with this. So I kind of stepped back and built my own database and finally just took a look at it objectively. I'm not pushing a narrative here. I'm trying to find the truth. And what I found was really interesting, because when someone's taken on board, what's most likely to happen is they're going to be physically examined. And that's certainly corroborated by most researchers who focus on onboard experiences. But that's when people are healed 20, 30% of the time or more, 50%, according to some studies. But they'll take you down to the engine room and show you how the craft works. That's not so bad. They'll take you up to the control room and explain how they fly the craft. They will even sit you in the pilot seat and teach you how to do it. Got a number of cases of this. They will take you to what we would call the observation deck, or the side of the craft or the top, and open a window and they'll show you the Earth far below, or a star field, or the moon, or what's the planet with the rings? Saturn. Or even other planets. This is not uncommon. Again, not so bad. And if you don't have, complete fear, panic reaction, I'm like, I'm scared, go away, stop. Because if you do, you're more than likely going to have missing time. That's all you're going to remember. And you're going to interpret it as a negative, scary experience. But if you don't, they will give you the tour of the craft and they will talk to you and explain why you've been taken on board. Will give you personal guidance in your own life with relationships, finances, what have you, but also will give you messages basically for the world at large, for all humanity, which are very, very consistent and have been since day one, when all this started ramping up in the modern age of UFOs. And it's basically three areas. It's environmentalism, warnings against pollution, destruction of the environment, chopping down the forests, polluting our waters and our atmospheres. Another would be warnings against nuclear proliferation, nuclear weapons, nuclear power, use of nuclear material in any way. I said, you're on the wrong path towards self-destruction. Stop doing this. You have no idea how dangerous this is. And they will warn people about greed and corruption, the collapse of society, and the importance of psychic abilities. That's another one. That's one of their goals for sure. So I'm saying this because there is this fear-based narrative. And if you look at the events in an objective way, step away from what you think you know about this subject, and, don't believe me on this, look at the first-hand reports. You will see a very prominent pattern of guiding, teaching, healing, warning, informing, all really positive things for the individual, for the planet, and really for all humanity. So I totally understand if people have a hard time with this, with their encounters, and it can be very scary. but the vast majority of people I've talked to do have fear, but eventually they're taken on board a few more times and they start to like, this is not so bad. In fact, this is really interesting. I wouldn't trade it for anything. They've healed me. I've woken up to a whole new perception of our place in the universe and wouldn't trade. They're very glad to have had encounters. Not everyone, definitely not everyone, but most. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that's an interesting, another side to it that you don't really hear as often. It is true. It's
which surprises me. That's why.
It's shocking in a way, because I didn't know the incidences of healing could potentially be quite that high. And
MUFON did a study. They found 10%. In my own files, it's closer to 25%. Edith Fiore, she wrote the first book on. She was the first person with a PhD, rather, to write a book on onboard encounters. 50% of her clients had healings. There was the FREE study, which was the biggest study up to its time, still found 50% as well. I like the research of Barbara Lamb. She's basically confirmed exactly what I found. John Mack as well. Kathleen Larson, I think she's a great researcher. But some researchers are a little fear-based, and they do what I would call cherry picking and shoe fitting. They put the theory first and then look for the evidence to support it, which is not true science. That's not how you do it. No. You collect the evidence and then you make a conclusion.
No. Yeah, this is the big problem with a lot of science. Even in like mainstream science where it's supposed to be proper, it's like very often you get that with a lot of researchers. They will have a bias of sorts. I mean, it's a normal human thing to have that. Yeah.
I kind of get it. I was a skeptic. I did not believe any of this stuff when I started doing this research until my brother said he'd seen a UFO, and even then I didn't believe him for about 5 years.
Wow.
Until some guy came on the news. I'll never forget that day, November 17, 1986. There was a very famous sighting on that day. Captain Kenju Torochi, a Japanese airliner, had seen a UFO over Alaska. It's a really good classic sighting, and it was on the mainstream news. I couldn't believe it, and that's what prompted me to ask my brother. And I found out he'd had this major encounter. Had 2 witnesses with him. I started asking everybody in my family, and I would say, about 25% of the people I knew, family, friends, and coworkers, had encounters. Almost all of them had witnesses with them. That was a huge misconception I had. I thought people who saw UFOs were alone, stupid, on drugs, lying, lived out in the country. None of that was true.
Wow.
None of it.
That's fascinating. It's like you say, it's like with the paranormal as well. They sort of say that everybody's got a ghost story, but nobody really sort of realizes that these things aren't just stories a lot of the time as well. And and like you say, it's sort of like you can have someone tell you stuff, but it doesn't really go in until something else sort of like corroborates it, and then you think, wait a minute, like you say, you're sort of like, oh, my bro's been like jinxing me for all this time, sort of saying, oh, I don't believe him. And did you feel a little bit guilty when you found out it might actually have been real?
I did. I was also angry and upset and scandalized, because I'm like, some of the people, a good number of them within my family, these are people I loved and trusted. They did not tell me. I was mad. Marco, he tried. My older brother, Mark, he did try. I'll give him that, but he was really the only one. There was a very close family member who really doesn't want her name used, because she saw grays face to face. I'm like, how could you not tell me this? Like, you would not have believed me. You would have laughed at me. You would have thought I was crazy. And she's right. I would have.
True. Yeah, they probably didn't say anything because they didn't think that it would be received. Yeah, it's fair. It's fair enough, isn't it?
It's still not well received. Yes, we're talking about UFOs in Congress now, and it's being discussed in a very serious way. But if you look at these so-called congressional hearings. I put that in quotes because I've got more to say about that. But they are just talking about sightings, and maybe some crash retrieval incidents. And I hate that word, non-human intelligence. It's like, just call it what it is, extraterrestrial. But no, they're not bringing up contactees. They're not bringing up people who've had direct contact, which is crazy to me, because if you really want to know what's going on, you got to talk to the people who've had the experience. Everything we know about this subject comes from one source. It's those who've had encounters. And for them to be gaslit and ridiculed and disbelieved and pushed aside is really unfortunate and a lost opportunity. Because just imagine the potential we have to learn about every facet of science and history and psychology, and the knowledge that these beings have is so far beyond our own that it would be a shame to just say, no, I don't believe, go away. What? No.
Yeah, because the communication you could potentially have, if you had got established a back and forth as well, and said, oh, next time you go up, ask them this, and then bring that information back. I mean, that, like you say, that potential is
It's amazing. Yeah.
Just to recap a little bit. So just clowns, very interesting. Time, very interesting. Time, I believe, in a way, is individual to us. We carry around time with us to a certain degree. How many times have people have been in RTAs, and at that point of the RTA, when they're asked, time slowed up for me. I saw everything in slow motion, but hang on, it went like that. Well, no, to me, it was really slow. I saw the car coming, at a distance, and so time. The construct of time within our perception can alter individually from an individual's viewpoint. So that did touch upon quite right. If you have a really nice time with a grey and they show you around and allow you to sit in the seat and such, and kind of like, give you snacks or whatever it is, then obviously it's a nice event, a nice experience. On the other hand, if they're strapped to a table being probed and prodded, then obviously the trauma will, within that individual, create a shift in one's own time in the context of recognition of that period that they're being probed and prodded. It will slow for them, perhaps. It will alter for them, perhaps. So in a way, time, I believe, we do carry around with us in a way. Clowns are very, very. We had an event over here, Preston, in 1973. There was a thing witnessed by two boys called the Sandown Clown. He had another name, All Colors Sam. I was going to bring up a website. It was very remarkable because it was in the very essence of being the most absurd looking clown and alien entity. I'll just get that up and just show you what
I know the case.
You do? Oh, good. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. The All Colors Sam. Just so people can see at home. This is on the White website. So this is some people, and that is all the drawings at the time that were taken and the testimonies that were taken. Very well documented. That was basically what was witnessed. Now, how absurd is that?
It's different, right? That
is and a lot of these cases are just, it's almost as if these entities on purpose come up with the most absurd scenarios or the most unbelievable images of themselves, like the Flatwoods monster for start. Absolutely another absurd entity which had a craft, came out surrounded by mist and smoke, smelling very strongly of sulfur. A lot of these entities also have smells, which witnesses claim. Have you come across that with witnesses coming to you and saying, is that something that MUFON has investigated at all, the smells that they smell, these aliens?
I found one other study. Finally, I did my own. I collected like 60 cases where people detected odors during their encounter. And it was interesting because they fell into two categories. One was basically ozone smells and electrical smells and chemical smells, basically indicating that what we're dealing with is a machine, a craft of some kind. But people who are taken on board would often smell what they would describe as organic smells, like, a cheesy smell, or kind of like a locker room, or even Whitley Strieber talked about it smelling a gray, and he said it smelled a little bit like wet cardboard and cinnamon. One lady said it's very woodsy. Another used the same term, woodsy, which indicates biological, biologics. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But no, there hasn't been a whole lot of studies on odors, which I find interesting. But in terms of the high strangeness, yeah, I think part of that is us, because when you may have seen this, when you see something, off in the distance, your mind might overlay an image of what you think it should be. And you're looking at it, it's kind of like, is that a helicopter? Is that a person? What am I looking at? And until you get a good long look at it, you're like, oh, well, now I see it. The human mind has a tendency to sort of overlay our own belief system onto what we're looking at. Our beliefs play a role in how we perceive. So I think that's part of it. But another part is definitely this high strangeness aspect, which I think is intentional sometimes on the part of the ETs, which I think is sort of a way of encouraging us to think outside of the box, consider new paradigms, just to sort of wake us up somehow. Because there are people who have encounters and they keep denying it. They deny. And sometimes the ETs will just get in your face, say this is, and do whatever they have to do to wake you up, make you remember. It's interesting because some of these cases are just beyond bizarre. You're right, very hard to categorize.
Do you think some of these? Preston, do you think that some of these cases, because they're so bizarre, because they're so just odd, and also in cases like with the Congressional Committee that's been going on, and this so-called disclosure that they're talking about, I must say that with the Congressional Committee, they are basically taking an awful lot of evidence, military footage, military witnesses, either Air Force, Navy, taking testimonies from them, which is backed up by either FLIR or with maybe Raptor footage as well, drone footage. I think you see, it's a double-edged sword. I agree with you, it would be nice to take witness testimony. It would be nice to take witness testimony, but there is one problem, and that is us. We're very unreliable, and we're also it's subjective. If I have an account of a ET right now, if I go for a wee and I come back and in the toilet there was an ET, and I came back and you question me about it, for all intents and purposes, it is subjective to me. What I witnessed when I went for a wee in a toilet. So I think that is part and parcel. That's a problem. You need corroborative, and I think that's what they're trying to do with the Congressional Committee. They're trying to corroborate the evidence with the backed up footage, military footage. Whether that military footage is bona fide, I've got a big question mark over that.
Well, I do too. I think that observation is the foundation of science, flat out.
Mm.
If you can't trust a person's own eyewitness testimony, where does that lead us? Nowhere. To a certain extent, you have to be able to trust what a person is saying. And any investigator knows that if there's a multiple witness incident of any kind, whether it's a car accident or someone sees somebody famous or a wild animal or whatever it is, there's going to be slight variations in the person's testimony in terms of how big it was, how far away, what colors, but ultimately the core incident is true. And we do rely on eyewitness testimony to put people in jail for life all the time. Even a single eyewitness testimony can do this. So I would not dismiss a person's eyewitness testimony. And that's exactly what they're doing in Congress, is relying on people's eyewitness testimonies. And yeah, they're showing films, but they are lying. Do not trust them. Do not look to them for answers. Their history on this subject goes way back, and they have never told the truth. There is a cover-up. It's demonstrably true. They are not revealing the evidence that they have. They denied the reality of the Malmstrom incident in 1967 in Montana, where UFOs showed up and shut down our intercontinental ballistic missiles. It was a very compelling case. Lots of witnesses. Look, I get so passionate about this. 1952, the Capitol flyover. Hundreds of people saw UFOs flying over the White House, for Pete's sake. It was on radar. They're not talking about that, are they? They're not showing the gun camera footage from all these jets that have been flying for decades. These military jets have cameras on every side of them. They've had UFOs come right up next to them. We're not seeing that. Why not? Because they don't want to show us the evidence. They're lying. Do not trust them.
Yeah.
Until they can tell the truth about Roswell, for example. 1947 crash there. There is 100 books on that case. I am not kidding. It's more than that, actually. But several hundred witnesses. We have tracked that case as investigators from beginning to end, from when it was on radar to people who guarded the craft, to transported the wreckage, to studying the bodies, all of it from beginning to end. And the head of our defense here in the U.S., Moultrie and Daly, said, we've got no reporting on that. We don't know anything. Roswell, what? What's that? Liars. I don't trust them. And I'm really angry about it.
What do you think their purpose is for obfuscation? Because this is the thing I don't understand. Is like, if most of these encounters are relatively designed to be helpful rather than harmful, why would they obfuscate these facts? That's what I don't understand. Like you say, it's like, from the community point of view, why is the government pushing the fear over it rather than, like you say, what the actual reality appears to be anyway, from your understanding? Why do you think what their motivation could be behind that? Because it seems self-destructive in a weird kind of way.
There's the exact point. Because I don't think they have our best interests in mind. I really don't. If you look outside of the UFO field for how our governments have treated the people of their countries, it's not a good story. This is not a happy story. But when you get to this subject, from the beginning, they've covered it up. And I understand from a military perspective, when you suddenly realize we're dealing with people who are far superior to us technologically speaking, that's got to freak you out a little bit, especially when they're hovering over our military bases, our power stations, our nuclear bases, all of this.
Why do you think they hang around the nuclear power plants?
We're very concerned about it. We're absolutely very, very concerned that we are on the pathway to self-destruction. It's a message. It's a very clear message to all humanity and to the military folks. But I think the reason behind the cover-up is ultimately because we do have this technology. Roswell did happen, the crash. It's one of many. we've got this technology, we're reverse engineering it, we're weaponizing it, like we always weaponize all technology. So the reason behind the cover-up is one of greed. It's power, it's control. It's to keep secret the fact that we have this technology, and it's for them, the 1%, not for us.
That's true. The free power thing, if you generate free power for everyone, you can no longer make a profit off it. I suppose you have a very good point.
How much money do they make?
Yeah,
trillions. Billions. Yeah, trillions. You're right.
It's like even like the communications industry. I think I read somewhere that it was trillions in profit that they made. It's sort of like, so I suppose it makes sense if they can't monetize it and they make it available to everyone, and then everyone's life is better. They no longer have the power, do they? Because they no longer have the money.
Their motive is to enslave humanity and survive, where we won't. So I've got some people on my naughty list. It's the military-industrial complex. It's the pharmaceutical industry, the insurance industry, the banking industry, the energy industry. We don't have any way to reach some of these folks behind the cover-up. Certainly the intelligence agencies are implicated, the highest levels of the military, but we can't touch the military-industrial complex. They're not elected officials. The military is not elected officials. So they get to do what they want, and we cannot stop them. That's why I think, this subject is so important. People tell me, why should I care? This doesn't affect me. Oh yeah, it affects you.
Yeah, I think the atomic agency, the American Atomic Agency, is such a heavy hitter over there that dictates an awful lot. The energy agency, isn't it? You have over there. They're the ones which are sort of, I believe, the gatekeepers. Why do you think, Preston, that these aliens, if they're as advanced as they seem to be, and they seem to have technology which can go way beyond 9G, can go far beyond what human biology is capable of withstanding with their maneuverings of aircraft that they have, they're able to almost morph out at will with their craft. When they interact with us, they are almost childlike. Their communication skills don't seem to. They seem to, in a lot of cases that I've seen, they don't seem to have any understanding, any comprehension of fear, of pain. They talk in a manner which a lot of times is quite robotic, childlike. Why do you think with their technology that they don't actually communicate their message across to save the planet?
Well, I'm going to disagree with that characterization with all due respect, because they absolutely do communicate. Their messages have been very consistent from day one. And this is why we see contactees who are very ardent in their environmentalism. In terms of fear, I think our fear response does surprise them because we are absolutely very easily triggered with fear. There are some ETs which are probably not biological as we would think of it. Little grays are sort of these robotic AI androids. They're the ones who scoop people up. They might not display a lot of emotion. And this does cause a fear reaction with people. It all comes down to fear. Fear distorts a person's perception. But ETs are the best communicators there is. They are profoundly telepathic. And if you are not in a full-on fear panic, they will absolutely communicate with you. They're very spiritually advanced, very psychically advanced, very ethically and morally advanced, very technologically advanced. And this is don't believe me with this. Look at the first 10 cases. Also, be very careful that what we're dealing with in this field is a lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation, a lot of lying, straight out lying from people who claim to be contactees and aren't. From what we call MILABs, military abductions, where people are basically targeted, often contactees, to have an experience that's not ET. It's not ET. And it's a horrible, tortuous experience. Our governments are working very hard to paint a fear narrative here. And I've been accused of being Pollyanna about this. No, I'm not. I present the cases as I get them, and I work very hard with the witnesses to portray their cases accurately in my books. I send them their chapter so they can look over it. And yes, some have had what they believe to be a negative experience, most not. ETs will absolutely communicate with you, but you have to sort of get to that point where you're not in a blind panic. They're very emotional beings, very much like us, except have moved beyond anger and greed and all of this. This is one of the reasons behind the cover-up. If all humanity knew that there are people out there who have moved beyond money and greed and the need to control others and fear, it would change the way everyone thinks about this subject. So, there's so much misinformation out there. That's why I had to step back and really just build my own database. So I'd be very careful about portraying ETs as negative beings, because they've been around forever. We know this. The evidence of this is profoundly compelling. If they really wanted to hurt us, take over, do you think we'd be here? No. Their technology is so advanced, it would be nothing for them to stop us. They're letting us do our thing, and we are the ones who are violent to each other. We are the ones who lie to each other. We are committing mass genocide. So when people see somebody that looks different and it challenges their belief system, our first reaction is stranger danger. Because we overlay our own belief systems on these people, and it's not fair. They're not here to hurt us. The first 10 cases do not show this.
I get you. From a MUFON perspective, as a field investigator, what is the most common prosaic explanation that people mistake for a UFO? And conversely, what is the one piece of physical evidence that still baffles you?
I would say, I've interviewed a lot of people who thought they saw a UFO, and it turns out it's probably a plane coming at them, because you can't see the wing lights. The landing light can be really bright, and it looks like it's hovering there, and it turns. Or Venus, certainly. I talked to a guy. He's like, I saw this light. Turns out it was a shooting star. He'd lived in the city, had never seen a shooting star before. Like, oh my God. I mean, there's a long list of stuff. Balloons, party lanterns can go up in the sky. They can reach a height of 4,000 feet and remain for 15 minutes, and they can dart around looking like they're intelligently guided when they're not. There's a whole list of things that can fool people. But generally speaking, people are very reluctant to report a UFO unless it is a genuine UFO that truly baffled them. So I forgot the second part of your question.
My next sort of question I got for you, Preston, is many researchers, they stick either to paranormal or to UFOs. They stick strictly to either one or other. Why do you feel it's important to investigate both? Do you see a unified source for these different phenomena?
I wouldn't put it quite that way. When I started investigating, I really kind of stuck to the UFOs, but people, I started asking people, I learned my interview skills improved. And I started asking them, just tell me what happened and let them do the talking. And most of them started describing these paranormal experiences, whether it's an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience or seeing ghosts or anything along the lines of psychic messages, human levitation. I got a number of cases of that. Bigfoot certainly comes up. I think it would be a huge mistake to censor out evidence because it doesn't fit your belief system. I kind of get it. In the beginning, people really wanted to just nuts and bolts this phenomena and prove it. And in the beginning of UFO research, lots of investigators wouldn't even accept humanoid reports. Like, nope, just want to talk about sightings. Don't care what's inside these things, because they didn't want to look like crazy people. And same thing happened with the crash retrieval thing, which is now like the cutting edge of UFO research, as are humanoid reports. People would not even consider the fact that sometimes these things crash. Yes, there's a connection between UFOs and the paranormal. No, they're not the same thing. I think we're dealing with ETs, people like us from other planets. And I say this because this is what most contactees have concluded, the vast majority of them, and most researchers who specialize in this particular aspect. There is a theory out there that is put forth by people like Jacques Vallée, not only him, but some prominent researchers, that this is all one phenomena. It's wearing different masks. And if you see a Bigfoot, or you're the ghost of your Aunt Joan, or an angel, or a demon, or a Bigfoot, it's all just one intelligence wearing different masks.
Yeah.
So I looked into that, and the evidence for that is purely 100% speculative. Jacques Vallée has 5 reasons why he thinks, that there might not be ETs. He says they look too much like us. I'm like, well, how can you say that? Unless you've been to another planet, how can you say what ETs would look like? He says there's too many cases. It doesn't make sense that they're studying our planet. Whoever said that's what they're doing.
So where are they coming from? Where are they coming from, Preston?
Other planets. So often they're pretty tight-lipped about it, and I can understand why, because humanity is a very violent, unstable, untrustworthy, people. But we do have some evidence that the Orion system comes up repeatedly. But generally speaking, they're not revealing a whole lot about where they come from. From what I understand, our universe is far more populated than perhaps mainstream science certainly gives credit to. But by all means, what I understand is they are people like us. And that's the message. I'm not speculating here. Don't like to speculate. This is what the contactees have been told. Well, who are you? We are just like you. We share a common ancestry. We have the same heritage. We are you, you are us. We are one. This is a message most contactees who ever get a message of any kind will get at some point. They have genetics like ours. This is why they're all basically humanoid in form. A Bigfoot is a Bigfoot. They've been around forever. If you look into the history of Bigfoot, it's amazing. It's all over the world. I take it at face value, honestly. And as far as little people, fairies and elves and gnomes and such, they're in every culture as well. I don't think those are ETs. I think those
there is a large group of people that believe that with Bigfoot especially, that they are either extraterrestrial in origin or they're collaborative with the ETs, because a lot of times where people see UFOs or there's a UFO landing over there, it very often is seen a Bigfoot or Sasquatch in the same area, and they tend to put it together.
Sometimes, actually statistically insignificant in terms of the number of reports, because if you see a UFO or an ET, you're not likely to see a Bigfoot, and vice versa. There's probably 100,000 or more Bigfoot reports. Tiny amount, a couple of hundred. These two phenomena intersect. But they do. You're right. They're 100%. People have seen them coming out of a UFO or going in or being there when it happened. But what's going on here? I think it's like you said, what I honestly think is going on, they're not so much collaborating, but working together. Yeah. I think some Bigfoot I think they're sentient beings. I became a Bigfoot researcher because I had to. You have to follow the evidence. I'm not going to censor it out. If people are reporting this, let's look into it. I think some are in contact with ETs, which makes perfect sense because, certain people are definitely contactees. Why not Bigfoot? So I think that there is a connection there. I wouldn't call them ETs, but in a way, yes, because where did we come from? Did we evolve on this planet? Don't think so. The ETs said we did not. They have told us again and again and again and again to people. In fact, there's numerous cases where ETs have told people at one point we lived on Mars. And here's what really convinced me of this. So many people report human-looking ETs, just like us. Look human. It's not, quote, Nordic, because I don't like that term. It's not accurate. They're not all white-skinned. I've talked to people who've seen Mesoamerican-looking, human-looking beings, or dark-skinned, or Oriental, or Asian rather. So I think what we're dealing with is that these beings, we have a much closer relationship to them than I think we realize. They look upon us as kind of maybe not equals, but because we're not, but like they're children, they're our progenitors. So I don't think we evolved on this planet. We're all ET, probably Bigfoot as well. From what I understand, we have regular existential crises on this planet, regular pole tilts, regular mini novas, and that's what we're facing right now is what it looks like. And this is part of the whole reason behind the government cover-up, because at some point they scoop us off and put us back.
Yeah.
So that sounds crazy when I talk about it, but contactees get this message over and over again. So that's where I go to for answers on this subject. And
Okay.
I implore people, don't believe me. Do your research. Check this out. It absolutely can confirm this for yourself.
I want to take a little bit of time just to show people at home your website. Okay, so if you want to contact or for Preston's books as well, I'll just get your I'll just show a few. Let's have a look if I get it up. Okay, this is Preston's Twitter page. X. Okay, so if you can see that, okay, you can go straight there. It's got lots of videos up on there as well, which look kind of interesting. So this is Twitter. And I'm just going to show you now his Weebly, isn't it? A Weebly webpage you got, Weebly?
Yeah, PrestonDennett.weebly.com.
Okay. Right, let's have a look. Where is it? Weebly.
I've worked hard at this for a long time. It's an important subject. I think we all deserve to know the truth about this.
Yeah, we do. Definitely. Right, let's have a look. I'll get it up. Preston Dennett home. I think that's the Weebly one. Yes, here we go. There you go. That's your webpage, isn't it?
It is, yep.
Who's that good-looking chap?
Oh, not me. That's my stunt double.
Okay. Right. Is that AI, Preston? Is that AI?
No, that's me. That's me at Catalina Island. It is. I was younger then. Look at my mustache.
Yeah, you can see that. Yeah. Okay. Right. So that and you've got your books available on this webpage as well, haven't you?
Oh yeah. There's all these different pages. You could spend probably 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. So if you click on books,
excerpts
people, oh my word! Do you know I'm struggling to get one book out. Look at what a prolific writer you are. Seriously. Oh my! Just look at that, people. Honestly, I feel so ashamed. Not from here. Volume 5. Word. Aliens abducted my dog. There are countless cases of people being taken on board UFOs, but did not know that sometimes ET will take dogs inside UFOs. These cases have some interesting things to say about the extraterrestrial agenda. Ooh.
I was going to ask that actually about if there were any reports of animals, and with you saying about Bigfoot and people, I was thinking, are they just interested in the humanoids, or are there other animals that they have I mean, I suppose we can't ask them, can we really? But are there any precedents for seeing animals on UFOs?
Oh yeah, I did a whole study of that in there's a chapter in one of my Not From Here books.
Okay.
Called Alien Zoos, which is kind of a catchy clickbait title, but yeah, people have absolutely seen all kinds of animals on board UFOs.
Wow.
If you look into this, you will see there's countless cases of UFOs coming down, and they take soil samples. They will take samples of all vegetation. They take samples of all forms of life. They're collecting genetics from all the life forms on this planet in a way, I think, to basically preserve it, because we are ruining our planet. In simple terms, where species are going extinct practically daily. Every year there's our species that are going extinct, and they're trying to preserve that, I think. There was a case in Mexico where this lady woke up and she saw these little gray aliens picking all the leaves off of her split leaf philodendron plant, which is, a medicinal plant. They did it for 3 days until there was like no leaves left. She's like, hey, they're stripping my plant, my house plant here.
Wow.
But yeah, they're absolutely doing this. There was a very famous case in France, Valençol, France, with Maurice Nassy, where they were taking his lavender plants. He's like, who the heck is picking my lavender flowers? This is how he makes a living. And finally, he got up one morning and he caught them in the act. It's a really good case. It's got very well verified landing traces. But yeah, they were taking his flowers.
I wonder if they're using, like, say, if they're because I mean, lavender is very medicinal, isn't it? So it's either that, or they're using it like as pomanders in the UFOs to make it smell a bit better. The cheese smell. Yeah. No.
But yeah, I mean, they're taking, they're making very sure that nothing goes extinct. I think that's ultimately what's going on here.
Okay.
But it's one lady, she was taken on board and she's like, oh my God, there's a forest. They took her into a room where they had an arboretum. It was like very cool. A number of cases of that. R.D. Six Killer Clark, she's one of my favorite researchers. She's put out 3 books. I highly recommend it. She's another one who just lays out the case, doesn't put forth the narrative. And she had a number of cases of that. Super interesting.
Wow. Puts a different spin on it, though, doesn't it? If it's not just people that they're investigating.
All things Earth. They're very much interested in, I think, talking to contact, like Dolly Saffron. She says this is what they do. They're very nerdy, scientific people who go around studying everything that they can and advancing their knowledge to the best of their ability. They're by no means infallible. UFO crashes do happen. Because our magnetic field lines, which is how they fly, our gravitational magnetic field lines, are really unstable. And this is what's led to some of these UFOs crashing. But they're absolutely trying to expand their knowledge just like anybody would.
You mean the Earth's geomagnetic shield? Because that's moving at the moment, isn't it? There's 2 holes, but there's 2 on polar sides, which are actually moving at the moment. But yeah, do you believe that it's those that cause the crashes, or do you think it's radar? Or
no, it's not radar. Look up CME's coronal mass ejections. This is wreaking havoc with our magnetic field. Our magnetic field has gone down like 40%. It's moving towards 50. This is very concerning. This is the message ETs are giving people. So you can look up the science on this. There's a guy, Ben Hansen, Ben Davidson, sorry, Space Weather Observers. He's the go-to guy in terms of the science on this. He's very popular and is fighting mainstream science, who does not want to admit to the truth of this, but they have to, because he's laying it out in black and white. You cannot deny it. The message from ETs over and over again is a polar tilt, the magnetic.
Well, we're overdue a polar tilt, aren't we? We're well overdue it. That's what we're overdue.
I'm concerned about it. This is why our military is going underground. They're hoping to survive some upcoming catastrophes. It's very interesting, because if you look at the contactees, a lot of them have gotten this message. They're going off grid. They're collecting food and water. I recommend that to anyone listening. Remember when the store shelves went bare a couple of years ago? You can collect enough food and water for a couple of years very cheaply with just pasta, beans, and rice. A couple of $100, please do it. You don't want to go hungry if the whole grid goes down, because what we're looking at is a coronal mass ejection that is so powerful, it will knock down the worldwide grid, and it will not be coming back anytime soon. Look at the Carrington event of 1859.
Because of this oncoming catastrophe, that the planet is going through changes. Indeed, it is. But is that one reason why you're in an unknown forested location, Preston? Have you taken precautions? What precautions have you taken?
Of course, yeah. I think all of us should be able to have enough food for at least a couple of years. That's simple wisdom, and be able to have a water source. I'm getting well known. Never thought in a million years that would happen to me. So I try to keep a little bit quiet about where I live, because I do have trolls coming after me. You wouldn't believe some of the names I've been called. Skeptics can be very vicious out there, and social media has become a real difficult thing to deal with sometimes. I'm not super secretive about. I just don't like to announce exactly where I live.
No, I'm not asking for coordinates, Preston. I was just saying, in a light-hearted manner, really, whether your move to your location in a secretive forest is because of your belief in the impending catastrophes that will happen, and what precautions have you taken?
I was in LA for years and years and years, in Reseda, which had about 1 million people in every direction.
Yeah.
And we did have like a major earthquake, and of course the whole pandemic struck when I was there, and I started to realize, this is just not a safe place. So I moved to the East Coast, and I have taken precaution, moving off grid to the extent that I can, and absolutely collecting food and water, and just it's simple wisdom. I think we should all move away from being completely dependent on grocery stores and money to the extent that we can, because you can grow food. Even if you're in an apartment, you can set a little tomato plant up by your window, and you'd be surprised how many tomatoes you can get out of that. Or a fruit tree. If you have a yard, God bless you. Plant a fruit tree, plant a garden, because it's amazing.
Are you vegetarian? Are you vegetarian, Preston?
I'm not.
No. Okay. No, that's all right. No, it doesn't matter. I'm not vegetarian either. My missus is. The other half, she's vegetarian, which makes mealtime sometimes quite fun. But I'm not. You put a steak in front of me, and I could not live on a tomato. Yeah.
Hey,
not just
if someone wants, I have no problem if someone wants to be vegetarian, but I do think people, there are some vitamins. I looked this up because someone told me this. I'm like, I'm not so sure that's true. You can only get from meat. Well,
it's mostly the oils and the fats as well, which you can get by eating quantities like of nuts and seeds. You can mimic the same as the creatine you get from meat. But yeah, it's very difficult, and you have to eat quite a lot of quantity of it to make up for a steak.
What I would say, because I heard about genetically modified food not too long ago. Well, I knew about it for years, but didn't realize how pervasive it's gotten. Ended up throwing away quite a bit of the food I had in my pantry because I read this book about Monsanto, and the animals wouldn't even eat the vegetables they were growing because they made them, resistant to pests, and even the animals wouldn't even. Probably not good to eat them. The whole, corn has been very badly engineered.
Well, it's just one of these things, isn't it? It's like kind of, why don't vegetables keep,
They look
bread
pretty.
shouldn't keep, and yet it does. Bread has always throughout history been bought daily because it's made and it goes stale after a day. But now bread can last up to 7 days. It's like unbelievable. They done an experiment, didn't they, with McDonald's, where they put there's a video where they put a McDonald's burger, Big Mac, and fries under this glass glass cabinet, if you like, and they left it to see how long it would take before it degrades, and it took months and months and months. They had by the side of it made burger. And that sort of degraded in a matter of days.
It's frightening, isn't it?
The Big Mac, after about 6 months, looked good enough to eat. I would have eaten it. Well, I wouldn't because I think it's McPoison. But it looked good enough to eat. But unbelievable. And I think a lot of our food, like with vegetables, it's kind of like so. Because of money, it's preserved, it's frozen, and then defrosted, and that kind of isn't good for fruit anyway. It's hard to get fresh, isn't it, nowadays, unless you do grow it yourself. One thing I wanted to ask you is disclosure. Everyone is talking about disclosure. Spielberg's got a film out, Day of Disclosure. You are the man to ask. Not that you probably will know, but what's your thoughts on this big hype up of disclosure? Donald Trump has put out, he hasn't actually put out, but evidently, let me show you something. I'll show you something which I spotted on X, and I thought, hang on, that's a bit odd. Where is it? Oh yeah, here it is. Right, hang on, I'll get it for you. I'll get it up, and then it's easier than if I explain it because I'll just go waffling on. No one wants that really. Okay.
I didn't have to.
Right, I was looking through X, and there's a guy called Mark Christopher Lee. Have you heard of him, Preston?
I believe I know the name, but I couldn't place him.
Okay,
I've heard about this supposed announcement coming up.
He's a director. He's done documentaries and such and so forth, and also got people in government that he knows that is a bit au fait about a post. And on this post, let me just say, I quote, "I've been told that President Trump will announce the United States government's confirmation that certain UAP encounters involve technology and craft of non-human origin. The president will state that decades of evidence, including recovered materials and eyewitness accounts from highly credible military personnel, have been rigorously analyzed by scientific and intelligence experts, leading to the unequivocal conclusion that some incidents cannot be attributed to any known human technology, domestic or foreign. President Trump will highlight several well-documented cases, including the 2004 USS Nimitz Tic Tac encounter, the 2015 USS Roosevelt Go Fast and Gimbal incidents, and the historical 1947 Roswell incident. He will confirm that forensic analysis of recovered off-world vehicles and non-human biologics has established their extraterrestrial provenance. You know that word better than me, I think, Natalie. I can't say it even with my teeth. Marking the first official acknowledgement of this reality by any world leader. The president will explain that previous administrations maintained secrecy due to national security concerns, technology, uncertainty, the fear of public reaction. He will emphasize that he is the first president to authorize full disclosure because the American people deserve transparency. Current geopolitical stability allows it, and resident bipartisan congressional efforts have created the necessary framework for responsible revelation. President Trump will announce immediate steps toward the classification of related files, expanded scientific study through a new interagency task force and international cooperation with allied nations. He will state, "This is not a threat, it is an opportunity to unite humanity in understanding our place in the universe." I end quote. This is by my source. He said, this is Mark Christopher Lee, exclusive. My source inside the Trump administration provided this full text of President Trump's prepared historic announcement on UAPs, featured in today's Daily Mail, paywalled, sharing, blah, blah, blah. Right. So evidently, July the 8th is the day this year that he's going to come clean about it. What's your thoughts on that?
We'll see. I certainly hope so, because, we've never had a sitting head of state say even really anything towards confirming the reality of extraterrestrials. So I would absolutely love that. I think that would be a huge step forward. If they can absolutely admit to the truth about Roswell, that would be amazing. I don't think it's a threat either. I think we have to be very careful about that, because our governments are pushing a threat narrative. For years and years and years, they've said, "Oh, there's nothing to this. If you thought you saw a UFO, it's a hoax, hallucination, misperception, or mental illness." They've now reversed that 180 degrees and said, well, maybe there is something to it. And they keep putting forth this. There's a recent documentary, The Day of Disclosure, which if you watch it,
yeah, I have.
They use the term security threat, over and over and over, to the point where this is ridiculous. I think disclosure is inevitable for one simple fact. This is true. UFOs are real. You can ignore the truth, you can distort it, you can hide it, you can lie about it, but you will never destroy it. And we now have an army of researchers, an army of contactees. ETs have done their part. We have a database of well over 1 million encounters across the world, well over that. In the US alone, MUFON and NUFORC, those two reporting agencies, have some 200,000-300,000 cases. That's just two reporting agencies. There's others, APRO and QFOS and NICAT, which are all defunct, but those are still active. My point is, ETs have done their part to disclose. There's been major waves over most countries, really. So the evidence is out there. We'll see how this rolls out. I'm concerned because there's a lot of buzz in the community over a, quote, false flag, fake ET invasion. We have this technology, and what people are seeing now is not ET, it's us. So if it comes to a point where ETs suddenly invade, right after this announcement, I'm going to be very disappointed because I'm very concerned that that's exactly what's going on here. I hate to be so jaded and negative, but their record speaks for itself. They have never told the truth. So why would I believe lying liars to tell me the truth? I don't. I would be a fool to trust them. Let's have full truth and transparency. I dare them because that would be amazing. But it's going to take more than an announcement from the president. I want to see the Roswell craft in a museum. Show me that. Show me the ET bodies. They don't have any good reason to keep this secret anymore. We all know this UFOs are real. You asked earlier, I forgot the question, like what's the best, most compelling evidence? We have the evidence. We have landing traces. We've got radar returns. The photographic record is unbelievably comprehensive. There are implant removal cases, which are very, very hard to explain away. Physiological cases in terms of medical effects, the 300 plus healing cases. Absolutely, we have enough evidence to prove this in a court of law. And our governments have let's face it, they've got the bodies, they've got the craft themselves. It would be game over. All bets are off. If they would just release the Roswell crash, do that, and then maybe we can talk. I hope that statement does go out, because that would be a step forward that we have yet to see.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone at home in the comments? Remember questions, because we're going to try and keep to 2 hours. It's 1 hour 41 at the moment, so we're going to just crack on a little bit. But if you've got any questions, we're going to do Q&A in a little while. Okay, going to open that up. So if you've got any questions, whack them on up. Roxy, if you can highlight them and bring them up, that'd be excellent. One quick question I've got is just about, I've done a little bit of digging around, is about the underwater base, the Malibu base. What do you know about that? The Malibu base.
Yeah, I started researching in 1986. Well, that's when I found out it was real. Really dug in 1988. And started getting a lot of reports of what we call USOs. Unidentified submersible objects. And as I dug into it, I realized pretty much all the researchers in this area, Southern California, had multiple cases. I point to Barbara Lamb and Yvonne Smith, Ann Druffel, Robert Stanley, Bill Hamilton, all of them, Idabel Epperson, they all had cases. So it was clear, some of them were saying, gosh, something's going on in this area. And I started collecting all these USO reports off the Southern California coast. And I put them on a map, I'm dotting them with little dots. I'm like, gosh, they're all clustered in this area, mostly in the Santa Catalina Channel, which gets very deep, by the way, about 5,000 feet in some places, an average of 3,000 feet, but very deep. And some 150 cases of this. So mile for mile, this is one of the top producers in the world of USO reports, hands down, probably the top producer. I don't want to say that because there are other areas that are very active as well, but definitely super active. And it goes way back to pretty much the modern age of UFOs, 1947. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, gosh, what is going on here? Is there a base down here? I didn't want to rule it out because I don't know. Some contactees talk about being taken to what they believe to be an underground area. I've kind of moved away from that because I was not able to fully confirm it. Off the coast of Malibu, there is something that's called the Malibu anomaly. You can look this up. They've recently blurred it out on Google Maps, which makes it suspicious. If there's nothing to it, why blur it out? It's called Sycamore Knoll officially, in a thrust earthquake fault. But there's this structure there that looks artificial. I'm on the fence about it, but it's got a very flat top. It's got what looks like columns that are somewhat uneven, possibly due to weathering over the years, which would indicate that it's quite old. But it looks like there's an opening in there as well. Some Google images don't show it, some do. Thankfully, I screenshot a lot of these before they blurred it out. And this, I was researching this long before the Malibu anomaly was publicized and kind of went viral, so to speak. And it was really interesting to me that it was right in the area where there was a lot of this activity. Where it was really clustering. So I considered the possibility that was a base, but having talked to contactees, and I'm going to point to Dolly Saffron, she's my go-to gal for information on the ETs because she's worked with them directly and she's proved her case to me. I mean, I've seen the UFOs. She has corroborating witnesses, medical evidence, implant evidence, and I actually had my own experience where I was taken on board, not the craft that she's had contact with. They're all living beings, by the way, these craft. At any rate, she was told flat out, no, the ETs do not have bases on this planet, underground or in the water. They don't need them. What people are probably seeing is being taken into a larger craft and believing that this is, an underground base. So, from what I understand, they do go underwater, sometimes in large numbers, because they come down very hot. You can see this. People are seeing what we describe as anomalous lights. These are actually craft which are racing through the atmosphere and have a plasma field around them. And they go down in the water.
That's the thing, you see. I'm a bit of an advocate for them being plasmoids or plasma based entities. I mean, on a lot of the thermal, they don't show up. They don't show up with any heat signatures for engines. They don't show up with any virtually no heat signatures at all. They got obviously no ailerons on them. There's no guidance on them. There's no fuselage. They are just a disc or maybe a cylinder. But as for heat, no, that's the one thing that stand out. The Jersey drones, when they were looking at the influx of Jersey drones, and before they influxed into Jersey, they were actually at Mildenhall, US Air Force Base, Mildenhall in the UK, and US Air Force Base in Lakenheath, where the F-15s originally, and then now F-35s, I think they have now over there. But yeah, they were over there. Because I've got friends who were over there because I used to live in Lakenheath. I used to work on the base.
Wow.
And the equipment they have, I know for a fact the equipment they have for detection back in the day, and this was going back 20 years now, they would have spotted any incursion of a drone about a mile away to a mile and a half away. I know for a fact. So how these drones got in, I do not know, if they were drones. But there was no heat signatures with them.
Yeah, I think that's us. I think that's probably ET reverse technology. The Jersey drone, the Tic Tac gimbal, not ET. It's us. This is all compartmentalized. People very highly placed in the military, and even the president are not in the loop. I say this because that wave doesn't match other previous UFO waves throughout history, which usually involve entities. Also, having talked to people who are more knowledgeable about this, people like Michael Schratt, one of my favorite researchers, James Goodall, very much a historian of advanced avionics, people within, who are connected within the military. Dolly Saffron, she worked for the Department of Defense. No, those were not ET. Neither was the Tic Tac or the gimbal, or those are us. And we have the ability to do things that look absolutely like UFOs and don't leave a heat signature. This is why I'm concerned about Trump's coming announcement, because if he calls those ETs, I'm going to be really upset about it, because there are people in the know who know for sure that that is not ET. This is my assessment,
Yeah.
I am not an expert on that. I focus mostly on first-hand contactee cases. But I try to follow.
Preston. Look, I'm very dubious about the only evidence that they're taking on board at the committees is the military. Reaper drones or the military footage per se. I'm very skeptical because it's all in-house as far as I'm concerned. I would like to see some footage taken by members of MUFON. I'd like to see some footage taken by Joe Bloggs down the road in his back garden with something equivalent, something which they can contrast against that footage. That's what I would like. I'd like more information for them to go over to get to their result in this, rather than just taking, because I think they will, and I think you're right. I think they will. All we ever see now is like that new Syrian footage, the 2023 Syrian footage, the recent one, which Jeremy Corbell has just released. Or no, it wasn't, was it? It wasn't Jeremy Corbell, although it could be. It was that Southern guy, the one that was on the congressional committee. I've forgotten his name now. He was actually on the chair. Can't think of him now.
Oh gosh, there's so many of them now.
Yeah, it was him that was
Borland?
giving it, and yeah, could was that again?
Borland, Dylan Borland.
Could be. I think yes.
One of the whistleblowers.
I think so.
Because
it was
Graves, there's a bunch of them.
But evidently it was a dead exchange, what they call like a dead exchange or something, where they got this footage and it was totally anonymous, given to them, totally anonymous, not trackable. And as soon as I hear that, it's like, in my mind, it's like, that's dubious. I don't like that idea.
100%.
You know,
there's some really good footage out there. I would point to the 1991 Mexico City footage, where a UFO showed up during the solar eclipse, and 30 people in various parts of the city videotaped it.
Yeah.
I would point to the Salida, Colorado footage taken by Tim Edwards. That was 1994, thereabouts. I would point to the Turkey footage, Kumburgaz, Turkey, 2007, 8, and 9. Very, very well verified. Undeniably ET. That's ET. You can see the little buggers up there moving around. Dr. Roger Lear was there. Hundreds of people saw this. The Turkish government absolutely confirmed it. There's been some fools out there who said, "Oh, it's a cruise ship." No, it's not. That is absolute ludicrous.
I would want, if I get beamed up, Preston. If I get beamed up, I would expect them. All right, I would expect a couple of trolley dollies. All right, up there, handing out snacks and probably Quattro or
snacks. No, they will.
Right, if we don't have any questions, because it's been fascinating. I've just seen you might know this guy. I think he might be don't take my word for it. Enjoy Chemical Armageddon. Tone Tech. Do you know Tone Tech? I'll put up one of his Tone Tech soft kill programs. Okay, not too sure. Interesting though. Interesting Tone Tech.
They were talking about the chemtrails. That's what that is. Yeah, he was talking about the chemtrails and how it was affecting. He called it chemical Armageddon. That's what. That's
silver oxide, strontium, barium, radium. Yeah. Okay.
About chemtrails. Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
That does not sound like good news to me.
No, I know. There's I don't actually believe in the chemtrail business. I must admit I don't. It's only because I've got another family member who was a squadron leader in the Royal Indian Air Force, and he went to fly for a commercial airline, a big commercial airline, and I did ask him the question, and he said no, absolutely not. In all his years of flying, he said no, absolutely not. But each their own, if you believe. So if we haven't got any questions, I do have some real quick fire ones to take us up just for a few minutes. Won't take very long. It's just basically with these, it's just rapid fire, really. Don't think too hard about it. Just give us your investigator's instinct answer, okay? Just instinct answer. So here we go. ET or interdimensional?
Both.
Okay.
We're interdimensional, so are they.
Okay. If you had to bet it all on one origin for UFO phenomena, what would it be? The wow factor, in one word, how would you describe the feeling of a first-hand paranormal encounter? All right, so now that's 2 questions, but yeah, I wrote these out and I got muddled up myself. In one word, how would you sum up the UFO phenomena at the moment, the way it's handled, the way it's being handled?
The way it's being handled, travesty. What it is, good news.
Okay. Which is hiding more secrets right now, ocean or stars?
Stars. It's much bigger.
Okay. We already know this one. Friendly or hostile, based on your UFO healings research?
Yeah, friendly. It's some hostile ones who are still on their planet way the heck out there and are at the same stage we're at. There are people out there like us, for sure. But no, if they're visiting here, we don't have to worry about them. They're good.
Okay. You've lectured in a lot of states in America. Which state do you think has the thinnest veil, the thinnest wall, the state which is the most either UFO prone or spookiest paranormal state?
California leads the state in terms of the number of encounters. Texas is right behind in Washington. Florida is incredible. San Luis Valley in Colorado has got a lot of activity. So most states have their little hotspot. Fife, Alabama had a whole bunch of activity. Withville, Virginia, upstate New York. There are certain areas which are more prone to UFO activity. Please don't make me pick just one. I couldn't do it.
Okay. I just want that. It must be hard because each one has got.
Please, I'm only pick. There's too many. I have a question, Phil. It's a bit like your questions, and it's slightly not really UFO related, but bookshelf organization. Is it by author, alphabetically, by subject, or is it just a mess? Because I can't decide. Looking at it behind you.
I used to have it perfectly organized, and I haven't gotten around to it. It's very roughly organized by subject and then author. That's my intent. I haven't gotten down to that, but yeah, I've got a section on ghosts, one on near-death experiences, one on dreams, multiple personalities, angels and demons, psychic development, wilderness survival, of course, UFOs, astral projection. I'm studying all these subjects because, again, they're all related. There's a Bigfoot section.
That's the problem I'm having. It's like, luckily I've got my Kindle now because I think mine would look like mine would be tidier because I'm real OCD about my books. But I would just I've always wanted a library room. And like you say, when you start researching one thing, you end up going down in a different direction. Then you end up learning about something else. It's like at the moment, like you mentioned, the coronal mass ejections. It's like I've got an obsession with those at the moment because I get a migraine 24 hours before a mild to moderate one starts, and I will have a migraine for the amount of time the CME is hitting us. And I've been experimenting with it over because I've had so many migraines this last 12 months because the sun's been just going crazy. And I got to the point where, like, when I realized it was the CMEs, I was doing an experiment, and when I started to come down with a migraine, I'd be straight on space weather to see whether there was a correlation, and it was actually quite surprisingly high. But I forget my point now. It's completely gone.
Oh, you know what?
Rabbit holes. Yeah, learning. So then
you have to buy one of those hats that block the coronal mass ejection.
Like a literal tinfoil hat.
Essentially, but no, these are Faraday hats. You can buy them on Amazon.
Faraday hat, really? Oh, yeah, I need to look at that.
So that might help you out. You can actually get blankets and stuff.
Yeah, because I was looking at like whether you could buy a portable Faraday cage for me to sleep in, because there are some nights where it's really bad. Where it's like my skin's crawling. I've got tinnitus and it's going in one ear and out the other, and my head's like, and my teeth.
I had one. somebody took it, or I left it in a hotel. It's like that. I need to get one.
Oh no, I'll have to look into that. Thank you. But now I need to learn about space weather so that I can understand the space weather forecast.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, how many things do I need to learn? Because I mean, I've got horses as well. And that's why I was asking about the UFO thing, because like the two that I had before, I had dreams about UFOs abducting them. And both of my horses were very, very psychic, very, very strongly. You know, they had a lot of phenomenon around them. So I was quite curious about it. Yeah. But yeah, so it's like you say, the sheer number of subject areas.
Wow. Have you seen UFOs, Natalie? I'm curious. You sound like a contactee to me.
No, I haven't seen them. This is a thing. I've not had any phenomena since I was little. I've not seen them, but I've had a couple of dreams where I was trying to shape shift into I got an owl trying to make me shape shift into an owl, and I was really bad as an owl. I couldn't fly very far. I was about 2 foot off the ground. And somebody that was involved in MUFON said, "Oh yeah, that's them trying to teach you to do the out of body thing or something." And he said that I think that's aliens, because it's like. And I said, well, it's funny that, because I was joking about the horses going up onto craft. And now one of them was quite chill about it. And he's like, oh, yeah, I can get myself on and off this thing. And my other horse was going absolutely crazy. So that's in my dream. That's why I went up onto the craft and I was yelling and they were human looking. You know, like you say, there was a dark-skinned one and a very, very almost white, pale-haired one. And she was arguing with the others saying, we can explain to her, she needs to know. And they were like, she's not ready. She doesn't know. Yeah, so, but I've never actually, touch wood, I've never actually seen any, but I want to. But yeah, yeah. So I'm wondering now, like you're saying, with the lost time thing as well, because I do have lost time, but I zone out. But I also do have PTSD, so I'm never quite sure whether I've just gone offline for a bit or whether it's something else.
Well, I have a questionnaire of like 25 questions or little subjects which I can send to you, and if you
if you don't mind,
that might help clarify it, because
thank you. That would be interesting. Yeah. No, I'd appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know if I want to know, but yeah. But yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm hoping after talking to you, I feel a little bit more positive about the subject, because I've after my dreams and that, I've not had a very good impression of them. So, but yeah, after speaking to you, I'm like, all right, okay, so maybe back then wasn't in the right place, whereas now might have to have a more positive experience with it. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. If you do that for me, that'd be very kind.
Yeah, anyone, you can email me.
Preston, Natalie and myself are going on a CE5, first time for us, a CE5 meeting. It's going to be in a forest location with a CE5 group. We've never been before. We're not CE5 members, but we've been invited, so we're going to go. Do you have any credibility in CE5, and have you got any advice for us, mate?
Yeah, I've done CE5s. I think they work beautifully. It's all about consciousness and telepathy. ETs are telepathic. But right now, from what I understand from multiple contactees, the ETs aren't really here. In fact, one guy from Europe was told by the ETs that he needs to tell people that you should be wary of doing CE5s right now, because it could attract nefarious government agents, nefarious elements within our own government, rather than ET. So that's just something to keep in mind. I think that people are still having contact telepathically, so that might be really interesting to do. Just reaching out mentally and establishing lines of communication. But yeah, it absolutely worked for me. I've had a number of really good sightings doing CE5 work.
Okay.
We're not sure what will happen then.
No, we were told to also take laser pens, and also I'm wondering about a dog whistle. They say dog whistles are really good.
I haven't heard that. I have heard from contactees that the ETs do not like the laser pointers any more than pilots do. Or, I mean, if you're going to use it, don't point it directly at the craft. They can see you. They don't need a laser pointer. They know if you're down there. It's all about, are you emotionally, mentally ready for contact? Then you'd be much more likely to have, lines of communication established. But you're not likely to see a UFO right now. It's my understanding, take it or leave it. But yeah, you can absolutely reach out to them telepathically because that's how they communicate. And
so really you're saying you're saying, Preston, that if we go, we probably won't see a UFO because they're not going to make themselves visible. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you'd probably be seeing government craft. You're much more likely to see something like that.
Okay.
So this is what the contactees are telling me. I'm not speculating here. This is, it's funny because Michael Schratt, he has come to the conclusion that 80% of what people have been seeing throughout the decades has been government craft. I'm not sure I'd go that high, but he's starting to convince me. I'm going over to the dark side because the evidence he presents is very compelling. That we have had this technology since at least 1950. So,
yeah. Okay, right. We're now over 2 hours. If everyone's okay, I'm going to call it a wrap on this. Is that okay with you, Preston?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys. It's been fun. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, we covered UFOs. It would be nice to cover next time. It'd be nice to cover more paranormal and ghosty stuff, and maybe a little touch of Bigfoot.
I'd love it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, how did we do as a podcast? How do we do, Preston? And your experience, you've had out of 10. Come on, be honest.
It's like down at the bottom of number 1001.
Yeah, I can always mute it. Whatever you say, I'll mute it.
I'll give you a 9, 8, thereabouts.
Oh, okay. I can live with that. Yeah.
Well, I always say there's always room for improvement, but no, you guys were
always.
Yeah, thank you.
Mostly my intros. Yeah, Natalie will tell you.
I really appreciate
that. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
A bit random sometimes, so I was a bit worried.
No, the guy's done so many podcasts. If anyone's it's nice to get an idea of just because we're only a young podcast. We've only been going for a couple of. I've been doing this really for about over a year now. That's all, just over a year.
You did great. You made it fun. It was very conversational. We covered a bunch of topics. I thought it was awesome.
Brilliant.
Lovely. Thank you, Preston. That's great. Coming from you, honestly, spot on. You're a lovely bloke. Really are. I appreciate it. Right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I do appreciate that. And I shall now take us out. Preston, thank you very much. Natalie, thank you very much as well for co-hosting. I do appreciate it. All right, I'm going to get the right one because I normally mess this up.